You don't need to apologize, trust me.
All right, everybody, and welcome to today's live stream. We did an accelerator last December with Willow, and it had an overwhelmingly positive feedback. So we decided to start doing these every so often, and we put an application form out. And today we're going to accelerate Ken Esch because he's been working his tail off for a while on what he's talking about today. So it's kind of fun to, like, in December we took somebody who's like, I have these talents and I'm not sure where to put these talents. And then for Ken, he knows where his talents are and he's ready to go to the next level. So here's how this works. What's going to happen is, in a second, I'm going to have Ken launch into an explanation of what he's working on, the name of the project, what's been going well with the project, and some areas where he wants help making decisions or feedback on decisions, or feels like I need a little, like, it's a little hazy. I got to figure out what to do next to make this go to the next level. Now, if you're just joining the live stream, be sure to give us a like and a comment to get the algorithm going, because the more people we have in the comments, the better. Because as the observer of the accelerator process, we're looking for you to give critical questions, feedback, offers of support if you maybe know somebody you can introduce Ken to. So be ready to hop in and participate. And if you know somebody that you think should be listening to this, go ahead and reach out to them and let them know. Now, before I hand it to you, Ken, I'm going to also say who else is here. We've got Toolman Tim, who is coming to us from the road. So Toolman Tim, say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody. Yes, I may or may not be somewhere between the Canadian and the American border. Let's just leave it at that. No.
Yeah. Well, hopefully the world doesn't end while you're driving, because that would be awkward. And then we've got Sean from Hack My Homestead. Sean, say hello to everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Awesome. Okay. So with that, Ken, tell us, who is Ken Esch, and give us a little background on you, and then tell us the name of your project, and then I'll get into the other things so you don't have to remember to say all of the things at one time.
All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Ken Esch. I live on a 20-acre homestead in South Central Kentucky, about an hour and a half north of Nicole. So first met Nicole, what has it been, about 4 years ago now, when I came down to help you out at base camp.
2019.
Yeah. So been maybe a little bit longer than I thought it was. So I've been in construction pretty well my whole life. I've had a couple businesses of my own. Started out as a trim carpenter and kind of went through a couple iterations of a construction business. And I guess I always felt like I wanted something more. So what I kind of turned that into, and I'm not giving a whole lot of background. Maybe I should go into more background here. What I always wanted something a little bit more impactful than just doing construction. I enjoy doing that, working with my hands, but I wanted to help other people also start a business, break free from the 9 to 5, because so many people get stuck in a job they hate. And I'm like, hey, well, I can help people with that because I've got some experience in that. So about half ago, I started a membership program to help men start their own business, doing work that they enjoy doing, based on, or to kind of reflect their purpose in life. Because that's a huge thing for me, is doing things that tie into your purpose, because that's where fulfillment and all that comes in. I'm sure we'll get into that. The name of the project, I'm calling it Purpose, Passion, Profit, to reflect, your purpose ties into your passion, and you can make a profit out of that. So far in the past year, I've had 2 guys join as high ticket members, which was how I first launched this program. They each paid $5,000 to be part of the program for a year. And it's been awesome seeing their progress, the things they've done, and what they've had to say about what we've done inside of that. But I'm now launching it as a monthly membership, and still kind of iterating on some of that. what we do inside the program is we have a once a week meeting where we get together and we talk about what we're building in our business and how some issues that we're running into, and talk about how we can progress through that. Once a month, I also have somebody who is an expert in certain areas of small business, be that marketing, be that, building out your vertical stack of services or things like that, which actually I'm having Sean come in, I think, is that in April or May? It's coming up for too long, in about a month.
April.
And so I have
Yep.
different people come in and share their expertise with the group. That's the basics of what I've got put together now. I also do an in-person event each year, which is not included in the membership, but you get first dibs on tickets. So that's the basics of what I've put together, the short version of it. Fire away with your questions, or let's unpack it.
So go ahead, Tim.
I was just going to say, before I say anything else, that $5,000 a month for 2 people, dude,
A
good
year.
on you.
A year.
Yeah. But still, you've made 10 grand at this already. I expect you to come in and say you hadn't made anything. So I just wanted to pat you on the back for that. So good on you.
Appreciate that.
So let's start with, what problem are you solving for the people you're helping?
The big problem I'm solving is helping people find or create work that they love to do, and building a business. I mean, the joke is that we start a business so we have more free time, right? and anybody who's been in business for themselves knows what a joke that is, because you don't have more free time. But you get to control more of your time, and you do work that you enjoy doing for the most part. So the big problem that I'm solving is helping men get that aspect of it, figure out, like, what am I good at? What do I enjoy doing? And how can I turn this into a business that makes a difference in the world and supports my family?
And why did you decide to focus on men?
Because I'm a man and I've been through that, and it's
Personal
easier for me
experience.
to personal experience. Yes. Only about 38 years of it.
There's got to be more reason than just because you're a dude.
Well, it started out, I guess a couple years back, I started out trying to focus on teens, but my wife and I haven't had any of our own children. And so while I do work well with the younger generation, I found that messaging a little bit harder to reach, because you also have to reach parents, and they're like, why is this old dude that doesn't have any kids of his own, why is he talking to kids? And so I switch that to men more such as myself, because also it's things that I'm working on. Like, I also often am wrestling with what's my purpose and how can that play out. I think I've more or less kind of got that down, but there is always iterations of it. I don't know. I speak to people that are more like me a lot better, or a lot easier than trying to fit into something that I haven't been since I was a teenager. That was 20 years ago.
Is part of your motivator to help people that you have not had children, and so you're sort of putting that energy you would have put into raising children into raising up people around you, do you think?
It is. There's a lot of it. I've the last few years thought quite heavily on that. Like, I love kids, but we haven't been able to have our own, and not having a place like that to pour energy into, and especially thinking long-term impact and legacy even after I'm gone. It's like, what else can I do to make a difference, make the world a better place after I'm gone? So that's probably what this came out of, I would say.
And does your I'm trying to figure out the best way how to ask this question, but do you see yourself long-term transitioning out of construction into this full-time, or do you see yourself kind of bridging both worlds?
A little bit bridging both worlds. More transitioning out. I have already told my local community that I am no longer doing construction. I still work for people who have been past clients, such as Nicole. But people like at the hardware store, I was constantly getting referrals from them. And I told them, I said, I'm not doing construction anymore. Find somebody else to pass that on to. There are still elements I do. I have a couple of ongoing contracts that I do repairs for a storage unit area or business. And then I have a couple of Airbnbs that I help manage and maintain and things like that. So I still do that to keep working with my hands because I enjoy that and I don't want to be sitting here all the time. But also I don't want to just be out in the field building things and all that. Even though I enjoy it, it's time to focus away from that a little bit.
So you're looking
Right.
to build a movement of men who find their passion and build their livelihood around their passion so that more of their time is spent doing things that they're passionate about, whatever that is.
Absolutely.
And then you have found the spillover effect to be that their relationship with their families get better. Correct?
Interestingly enough, yes. Whenever one of the big things with growth is you don't really realize the growth until you reflect back on what you've come through over the last year. And so every couple of weeks I'll ask my guys questions like, hey, what have you seen over the last year from where you were a year ago to now? What's changed? And one of the biggest things is my communication with my wife has gotten better. We enjoy each other's company a lot better. I'm like, we're here to focus on building a business, and everything they're telling me is things at home are better. I love my spouse more. I'm better at communication. I'm better at leadership and all of those things. So it's as you focus on one thing to try to make this better, it seems like the whole of it gets a lot better.
Okay. So before I go on to the next question, I'm going to actually give Sean and Toolman Tim a chance. Do you have any other questions before I transition to something else?
Well, I was going to mention, when you identify, or maybe you have, maybe you haven't, but if you have identified what your target customer is this someone who's just started a business? Is this someone who wants to start a business? Is this someone who has had a business and is growing it? Like, where in that path are you focusing, or do you feel like you're going to have the most impact? And I guess kind of the bolt-on question there, if you don't know the answer, would be, have you really sat down and figured out, quote unquote, what your avatar is, right? Who you're selling to?
Mm-hmm. I would say that would be not someone who's been in business for 5 or 10 years and is growing a multi-employee company, because that's not been my experience. Like I have a lot of insights for things like that, but I don't have hands-on experience managing a 10, 20, 50, 100 person company. My expertise has always been either me as a one-man show, or I think the most employees that I ever had, which it was my dad and I in business. I think we had 4 guys working for us. So the people that I'm trying to serve are guys who are either just starting out in business, or they maybe have been in business, but they're like on the verge of, I'm not sure where to go to get more business. It's not quite a full-time thing. I want to do more of this, but I'm still stuck over here. Kind of where I'm at, coming to you guys for help growing something that's not my normal construction expertise, because I've done that multiple times. I know how to do that. I just don't know how to reach the people to come here.
Okay, Tim, anything before I go into a bit of a nuts and bolts inquiry?
Yeah. Sean asked the exact question that I was chiming in to ask too, because I think this is, you said you want to, somebody who's kind of new into business. Can you flesh it out a little more, like age, sex, amount of money? Obviously it's a man, but kind of their income. Be really specific about who it is you're going after, because you know what they say, if you go after everybody, you're going to catch nobody, right? So I'd like to know a lot more specifically who you're going after.
The definitely men, is because that's my experience. And I often find that like in the 30 to 40, 45 range, we often like that's when we start thinking about future, about what comes after us, what's future generations. And that's where I find myself. So the 30 to 45-year-old range is kind of what I'm shooting for. The income, I hadn't thought that one through. I mean, if somebody's making $500,000 a year, they're probably not going to want to start a really small solo entrepreneur construction business or something like that. There are those out there, but they should probably go to somebody who has a little more expertise than I do in those areas, because they're making a lot more money than I am already. I don't
Well, I
know.
can
Does
So
that
are
tell
you
answer
you
your
thinking
question?
that
like,
Was there more to that, Tim?
so are you thinking like 30,000 to 80,000 or 40,000 to
It would
150,000
it
a
would
year?
be in that range, 30, probably 30,000 to 100,000. Like I know that's a good range, but I've been a little
And
more than that, not consistently, but have been up over a little over. So I mean, yeah, that would be my wheelhouse there for the people that I would
and are
speak
you
best
going
to.
after guys that have kids, guys that are married? Are you going after Christian dudes? Where do they hang out? What stores do they go to? That kind of stuff. Because when you nail that down, I think you're going to have a lot even more success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do find that people that have kids, like they resonate with the message a little more, because as you start having children, you think more about the future and about the impact that you're having. So both of the guys that joined or were in my program over the past year, they both have kids. One has 3 kids under 10, and the other one has 2 under 5 with another one on the way. So, I mean, they both do have kids. They are both Christians. I'm a Christian, so I probably attract people like that more. It's not specific to only Christians, but that is a part of what I do. That's who I am. So that's going to be inside it. Like it's part of it. Did that answer all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. And for the most part, it sounds like you're kind of describing yourself too, within
Pretty
reason.
well.
But a couple of thoughts there is
Okay.
it when you're doing something
Oh,
Tim, you're cutting out right
like
now.
this, like it doesn't
catching about
necessarily
every
hurt
fifth
to,
word there.
that term niche down ends up. Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. Am I back now?
Yes.
Seem to be.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So yeah, I would say niching down, number one, like do the exercise of sitting down and writing out exactly who your ideal customer is. And then from there, figure out where those ideal customers are, which I know that's what we're here to do, but definitely, and it's okay to be very specific. Like I did that for my YouTube channel. You know what I mean? Like I wrote down like what stores people shop at, what their hobbies are, what kind of income they have. And when you have that mind in your head, it helps kind of formulate a lot of your decisions.
Why did you decide to go from the $5,000 annual fee to the $97 monthly fee?
I took some of the things out that cost a lot of the money. I mean, they'll still have access to that, but at an additional fee. So the in-person event was included in the high ticket fee. I had a box that I mailed out every month. That was part of the high ticket. That none of that's going to be included in the monthly membership. But I will have still the access to, if somebody wants deeper access and all of those things included, that's still available.
But why did you do that?
Why I did that? I feel like people are more receptive to a smaller fee, more, I mean, on a monthly basis, rather than the huge lump sum. Like it's hard to see what am I getting for this great big lump sum, rather than, okay, I can see everything I'm getting for this monthly fee. and going at it that way.
Okay, and then what do I get for the monthly fee? Like, how does that actually work? Pretend I'm a dude and I come in and I'm like, I'm Nick and I've signed up for your program. Like, what does that look like?
So Nick, what we do each week is we get on a group call. We meet Tuesday nights at 7 Central, and all of us get together. We have a little bit of prayer time, talk about things that are going on in your business, in your life, work through any issues that you might be facing, or like talk through especially business issues. But if there's something really pressing in relationship, whatever that may be, we talk through that, help you brainstorm or how to come out of that on the best side for everybody involved. That happens every single week. Once a month, we also have a small business expert come in, and these are guys that have some of them multi-million-dollar coaching businesses, and they're coming in and volunteering their time to pour into each and every one of us to help us also build a business that can impact those around us. So you get those 4 calls each and every month that's focused on you building your life and your business around your purpose so that you can have the impact you want in life.
Okay. Sean,
Does that
what
make
you hear
sense,
in that?
Nick?
So let me ask you this, Ken. About how long is that weekly call that you guys are having?
It's an hour each week.
Okay.
Which, I mean, sometimes
And-
it goes hour 15. We've gone an hour 30. It's not a strict hour, but that's what we have allocated for it.
Mhm.
I'm not a
And-
licensed psychiatrist.
Don't worry about the comments.
And the monthly, is that in addition to the weeklies, or is that one of the weeklies?
That is one of them. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and what do I really get out of it? So the call is the tangible thing. But what are the benefits I'm taking out? When I leave that call, I'm like, man, I could not figure out the marketing message for Self-Reliance Festival, and now I've got it. Is it stuff like that? Or is it a support group or what? I'm going to totally boot this person.
It's a scam.
You're
Well,
a scam.
my guys wouldn't say it's a scam. Heard nothing but good things. So yeah. What you get each week, like, you know how we often look back over the week and we're like, man, what did I do? So on these calls, one of the questions I ask the guys almost every single week is, what was your high point, or what was the one thing this past week that you accomplished, that you set out to do, that you're proud of, or the thing that, you know, you can look back on and I did this thing. And it's kind of funny. The one guy, he said, you know, I always felt like I was sitting on the couch, like you were being my psychiatrist or whatever. And we have to dive into this past week. He said, now, if you don't ask me that, I kind of miss it, because I like having that reflection time to see what I actually did. And then one of the other things that we always talk about is, what are your goals for the coming week, and how can that tie into the goals that you set for yourself at the beginning of the year? This is what I want to achieve at the end of the year. What are you going to do this next week towards that? And then, you know, the following week you come back to that. It doesn't always happen, but I mean, that's natural. If you don't have a goal for where you want to go, though, you're never going to hit it.
Okay, so I join your membership and I get access to these calls and sort of expert input and that sort of thing. What's your on-ramp for me before the first call?
That's a good question. I don't really have one. So if you sign up through the website, you do get a series of emails that helps you sign up for the membership area and you get added to the calendar. That's the basic on-ramp there. I mean, I don't have an onboarding call where we talk face to face, which often I'll have that before they even sign up.
So how does participating in your call help me find my purpose? Is that where it happens, or does it happen outside of that?
It does happen through the call, and it's a lot being intentional with the way you live, because as you think through, what have I done this past week? What am I doing this next week? When you start thinking through what's going on, what you're doing, then you are more intentional about it, and you try to do things that fit within your purpose or fit inside of what I enjoy doing. Because if I think about the last year and I don't find anything in the last year that I enjoyed doing, I'm like, this sucks. I got to get out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to do things that are impactful, memorable, and fit with what you enjoy doing.
So what's the biggest thing that stands in your way of selling this to people, do you think?
I think finding the people to talk to and knowing how to bring it up without being salesy, without being like, hey, I have a membership. You want to join my membership? I don't know. It doesn't feel natural to me I guess I don't feel like this is who I am yet. And so I'm still the construction guy. That's how everybody knows me. And so even going back to the end of last year when I was saying, I'm quitting construction, I almost had to do that to kill that part of me so that I'm not identified as that anymore, so that I can take on this new identity.
So in your pre-work, you also said you're not quite sure your messaging is where it needs to be.
Right.
And I'm hearing that a little bit when I ask you these questions, because you're not sure which way to answer it, which is okay. Because I have seen what I see you putting out on social is like purpose, 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 like all the time. It's something about finding your purpose or what are you passionate about. And that is very consistent, which is good. Because you're trying to attract people who want to find their purpose, who are willing to put in the work. Because you can't find your purpose if you don't put in the work.
Exactly.
It doesn't, like, you have to be paying attention, even if it does hit you over the head like a 2x4, right, Sean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think if you dial in your messaging and who you're targeting, you're going to find it easier to find people. And you just admitted that you have imposter syndrome, didn't you?
Yes.
I did.
Took the words out of my
he
mouth.
did. We all smiled when he said that.
And I know it. I know it. I'll tell a little story. I had a guy that's been working for me for the last year, and when I quit construction, basically quit. I'm saying I quit. I still do a little dabble in it here and there. But when I quit at the end of last year, he started his own business, and I saw the other day he started a Facebook page, and he was posting pictures of jobs, and about 8 out of the 10 jobs that he posted were my projects over the last year that he helped me on. And I don't know, that felt like somebody stealing my identity. So I still do identify as a construction guy because I'm good at it. And I don't know, it's a little story. I mean, just confirming, yeah, I do feel imposter syndrome.
Can I just want
Well,
to
when
share
we build
one
go ahead, Tim.
I'm sorry. So first off, I got to say, you made $20,000 in the last 12 months. Or sorry, was it 5,000? Sorry, $10,000.
10, yep.
Yeah, by being a coach. So you're not an imposter. You're already doing it. That's a shit ton of money from, like, dude, I know. Do you know how many people I know that if they were making $10,000, they would call that their side hustle? That's their identity. And I want you to get that through your thick skull, because you are, like, you're doing it, right? And I hear it, and I hear this insecurity or the unsureness, and you're not that guy. I know you're not, and you're kicking ass and taking names, so you need to hear it. And if I could reach through my earbuds,
rattle my brain a little bit,
smack you on the back of the head, I totally would.
Do it.
Yeah, Ken. So anyone that's selling anything struggles with I want your money for a thing, okay, but I don't know how to ask for it in a way that doesn't sound salesy, right?
Hmm.
Everyone that's in any kind of sales struggles with that. The key is to understand the value. Okay. And so then when you're having a conversation, it's not about what you're getting, it's what you're giving. Okay. And you just have to have that conversation a lot to get to the place where A, you can very easily articulate that value, and B, you can do it in a way that it resonates with your target customer. Okay. You just have to do that more. That the only way you get there is through practice. But when I was back in construction and I was training construction sales guys, the very first thing I would do is I would take them out to our projects. These big, massive projects are very, very convoluted issues that we were solving for our customers. And I would let them see what we were doing. And then I would take them to talk to the actual customer and let the customer tell them the impact that we were having on their project. We're talking about, in some cases, multi tens of millions of dollars projects. On our side, we're on $1 billion projects. And the reason why I would start there is because I wanted those sales guys to understand, yes, I'm giving you a quote for $15 million. Okay. But the problem that I'm solving for you is worth way more than that. If this project comes in a month ahead of schedule, or we take the month that you're behind and erase it over the next 6 months, that's $100 million impact. And there's a cost of not acting, and there's a cost of acting a different way, right? And so at the end of the day, the way that those sales guys kind of got over that hump was understanding, hey, yes, I'm asking for your money for this service that we're providing, but the value you get and the cost of doing anything differently than what I'm trying to sell you is well over the amount that I'm asking for. So when we talk about creating an avatar that you're selling to in your mind, and going and getting those comments from your existing customers of how you're helping, all of those get weaved into that marketing message. And then the more you tell that message, you'll find the points that people key in on, that, right? What questions are they asking when you're having those conversations with them? And that'll kind of steer you towards how to, weave the tapestry of a marketing message in a way that feels genuine to you, right? Because you have to believe it. We've all heard the guy say, all sales is the transfer of belief. Well, if you don't believe it, there's no way you can get anyone else to believe it. And the best way for you to get that belief and to get away from that imposter syndrome is to talk to the people you're having an impact on and weave their message into your message.
And talk to them with your ears.
Yes.
Because 2 people paid you $5,000 each for your help, and they don't hate you right now, right?
Yeah. Which one of them asked for a refund?
Yeah.
I hope not. They're both family.
Which one of them asked for a refund? Great question. So a $5,000 investment for a year of coaching it's not a bad price. First of all, if you're going to get one-on-one coaching. And secondly, if they're not pissed at you, then you did something right. And you probably had more of an impact on their life than you know. And that's why I say you need to talk to them with your ears and find out, because they may not know how to articulate it, but have them explain how their life is different a year later than it was when they started, or half a year, however long they've been working with you. And so that's one thing. And then 2, most of the advice out there for coaching that you can kind of buy through the things that are targeted at you on Facebook, which I'm sure you get targeted by about all the time.
Constant.
They're like, do these gimmicks and you'll grow your coaching business. And if those gimmicks don't support the outcome you want with your most important and best customers, resist the urge to do the gimmick. Because I think that's where you'll find yourself feeling like, I'm juggling balls over here, but I was never wanting to be a juggler. And like, look at me. And you know what I'm saying? Like, don't just throw things into the coaching program because the top coaches who make $1.5 million do that, because that those serve as red flags to the kind of genuine person you want to help that you're trying to attract. Because when you were describing your target audience, you weren't saying, I want to get, Nicole, I want to get 50,000 people into this thing however I can so I can make a bunch of money coaching them. You said, I want to help men find their purpose and build a business so they can opt out of a system that's not serving them. That's what I heard you say.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm sure you get pushed back on the men thing all the time, but I think that's just funny whenever I see that happen. Like, he's got a very narrow target audience. That means you can niche down your message, as Toolman Tim has said, and that you can be genuine in the product you produce too, because you don't have to put on a big dog and pony show to attract as many low dollar people as possible.
Yeah, that makes sense. It does. I like that.
The other thing I was going to mention, you were talking about how, now you've got a weekly call. It's scheduled for an hour. A lot of times it runs over, and that's with 2 people in the program. You go to a $97 a month membership and start trying to cast that wider net and get a lot more people in there. What does that happen? What happens to that weekly call? Can you not dilute the message, right? Can everyone feel like they're being a part of it at that level? And so, there's a perfect question from someone on the chat. Is there a limit to the number of people? And whether or not you limit it, there is, right? There's a limit to the number of people that you can really have a strong impact on in that kind of setting. And so, I think that, 5,000 a year is it's like a gating item, right? So you got to have someone that's making enough money where they can do that, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. 97 a month, that, obviously opens the gate quite a bit wider. Okay. But it also, you got to be careful about diluting the product, right? Because I would imagine with 3 of you guys, normally you're 4 on that call, there's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of getting to know each other, which is part of that value you're creating. And so, diluting that by having a lot more people involved could be a problem. Now, the other side of that is, if I'm paying $97 a month for a coaching program and there's 4 calls a month, maybe I'll only show up for 1 of them or 2 of them, so there's going to be that, but just something to think about. Because when you said 5,000, I'm like, okay, that's going to limit the people that you're dealing with, right? Because that's a big number, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? The key is finding, 12 to 20 to maybe 24 people that are willing to pay that and be part of that program.
Right. Yeah, and that was my struggle too, is finding the people that were willing to pay it. I mean, I probably had, I don't know, 10 calls with people interested in it and had 2 sign up. I mean, 20% is pretty good. So my biggest struggle was actually finding people that were interested enough to even discuss joining.
Mm-hmm.
So you need, again, we'll go back down to it, but you got to do some targeted advertising or some, I saw in your notes about going on to like-minded podcasts, and I think that's a great way to do it. I'm just going to throw it out there. I really think you need to niche down to the Christian male market, because here's my first thought about that. Number one, if I were coming in to your meeting and you had a prayer meeting, not a big deal, but it's not my cup of tea, right?
Right.
But that's okay. Not a big deal. But that most certainly is the cup of tea of the folks you're going after. So embrace it, man. And, if you could, I'm thinking, here's another idea. Go around and do free seminars at churches in the evening about, that is, you know what I mean? Isn't that how Dave Ramsey got started?
I think it is. I think you're right.
Your Find Your Purpose presentation.
Yes.
Which on-ramps them all the way to be ready for that first call.
Right, because then you get a whole bunch of warm contacts who are, all you have to do is say, at the end of it, or, you know, they don't even have to agree to a phone call, but you can have something in place that will facilitate agreeing to a phone call at the end of that, right? So if you get it, I mean, and I want to go all over the place with this a little, but 20%, you know, if you get, I don't know, 10 calls at a time, you know, one or two, and I still think you should keep it at just 5,000 because I think it's going to be way less headaches. I could just picture, you know, think about it. You need to have 5 or 6 people to make up for that $5,000 at $97 a month, and that's if they keep the subscription for the whole year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at probably more like 10, I would be my guess. So I think you need, my first suggestion would be offering, I mean, just think about where you live right now. How many churches are within a 2-hour drive that you'd be willing to go and do a free 1 hour, 2 hour Wednesday evening prayer meeting seminar that you could talk about with there's nothing forced behind it. You're just there to share your passion. And then you can say, hey, folks, because you're with your people at that point, you know, you speak the same language, you talk in the same words, all of that. And it's not disingenuous at all because your spiritual gift in your reason for being, the reason God put you on this planet is to find other people's purpose. So, I mean, if a church can take an offering, you can make $5,000 for helping somebody because your time is valuable. So, man, I'm all about that.
I hadn't thought of that. That's wow, really puts a new gives me a good shift in perspective and some good thoughts and insights there. Like I had never even thought of that.
I just want to share one more thing before I forget. So I did 4 years in college, university, to study to be a pastor. And the language you use very much comes out of the pastoral leadership mindset, the John Maxwell's, the Stephen Covey, that kind of stuff. And it is absolutely at home in a church or religious setting, but it could be a little off-putting for some folks outside of that. And I'm just being absolutely honest about it. So I mean, you speak the language. Yeah, man, I think you need to go after that for sure.
Well, you speak the language. It's who you are. It's how you interact with everybody I've ever seen you interact with. It's a question that every time I talk to you about business, I'm like, so you building the Christian thing into that? Because you are, right? And there's no imposter syndrome to be had at that point. Like unabashedly, this is where I want to work. This is the environment I want to work in. If somebody who wants to come into your group is not Christian, that doesn't mean you say no. But if you're focusing on the ideal customer is Christian male, probably married with kids, who is between the age of 30 to 45, income 30,000 to 100,000, I'm able to help on-ramp them by giving them some free things centered on how to find your purpose and build your purpose into your life and leadership, right? That then you have the premium offer. I actually love the $5,000 product way more than the $97 a month product. Like the first time I heard it, I was like, yep, it's better to have that. Even if it culminates in that in-person thing or not, I'm not sure I would send a box every month for that because the coaching you're giving is the value.
Right.
And the connecting and the facilitating between your mastermind groups is what you're giving them.
And I think you niche down even just a little bit more. I think you bump up that average salary to more. Like I think who you're looking for is the guy who's making almost 6 figures, you know, right around $100,000. He has a good job, but he hates it. And he wants to do his own thing because that's the type of guy that's willing to spend 20% of his yearly income taking a chance because it's not going to be, you know, if I'm making $30,000 a year, that's 1/6 of my yearly income. I'm probably, even if I want to, right. I mean, that's almost impossible. I really think you go after, and this could be something like a men's coffee group at McDonald's on Wednesday morning, you know, or whatever. But you can tell I came from this background because I know about it. And I totally think that's where you're going. But I think you need to bump up your average income of your ideal avatar / customer.
Yeah, Life Done Free says best advice I could give is not to chase the money. Chase the cause, which I think you're doing. The money will come. Belief is everything. And I see that in the fact that last year it wasn't really your first year, but it was kind of your first year. You closed 2 $5,000 people who are happy. Who I don't know if they're going to renew. I don't know if that's built into your model or if after a year they go off into the ether. But anybody they talk to, like their friends, they can be like, hey, my life changed in these ways because I worked on this program or I participated in this program. Yeah, Mona's saying you could bill or you could have something that's quarterly. Makes that a little less difficult to bite off when you're coming up with the $5,000 fee. But anybody who invests $5,000 in improving their life is committed to improving.
They're all there.
They're
there every time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they show up for sure.
I think you also build into what you're doing the understanding of the folks who are doing it, that you're going to use them for promotion. It's just like when somebody wins the lottery, they have to agree to, pose with that giant oversized novelty check. You need to sit down with the folks that you're doing this with, and you need to record some stuff. You need to get it on paper so you can toot your own horn. And hopefully, because in your own words, you said, if we don't look back at what we've done, we don't get motivated and we don't feel like we've done anything. Well, I'll bet in the last year, you've done a metric shit ton of stuff with these two guys. And I'll bet they've done a lot with their lives. And if you're willing to sit down and almost like an exit interview, but they're not exiting, and record some stuff, write some stuff down, and then all of a sudden you got a whole bunch of promotional material.
That's a good thought. I need to get that scheduled in, because we go through the year starting in July. So we've got a couple more months to end out the year. So I should get that scheduled in there. That's a good idea.
Definitely.
Yeah, I love the idea of putting together a 30 to 45 minute really super value packed presentation about finding your purpose, about living with purpose, having a passion, following your passion, that kind of thought process. And then you do the whether it's Wednesday night Bible study or Thursday morning coffee, or you look for those opportunities, and they might be things that you have to travel a little way for, right? Like I've been to your place. You might have to go somewhere to find an audience big enough to where you can get a 10% or 20% close rate, Yeah,
but we're a little far out there, aren't we?
Yeah. But that's the thought process is you go in, you provide value, right? One of the things, I go back to my old days all the time, right? One of the things that I always used to tell sales guys is whether they buy or not, anyone that comes to your presentation should feel like they got value and should be happy that they came to the presentation, that they learned something, whatever the case may be. So you put that really succinct, value packed, together and practice it over and over and over again. Right. And then, get out there and get that message in front of your target market. And what'll happen is if you're talking to 30 people, right, you might end up with 7 or 8 at the end of a talk that are interested in having that conversation. Right. And so then what we're trying to do is, we're just trying to maintain our 20% close rate. So, you'll get to where you're having your weekly call, you're learning things as you get more people into the group, you're learning more things that you can weave into that message. Right. So the presentation kind of stays the same with a little bit of tweaks, but the conversation with the people that want to talk to you after the fact about, here's a program that I offer. And you could split that 5,000 thing up by saying, okay, if you pay up front for the year, it's a $5,000 investment for you. But we do have a payment plan, right? We'll break it up into 3 payments of whatever,
There are
$1,800,
4
right? So you
payments
want
of
to,
$1,500, and it's a little bit more at that point.
right, exactly, right, yeah. So there's a cost of getting the value before you're actually fully paid into the system, because you want to incentivize the people to, do the whole thing up front. And of course, anytime you're offering a service for consideration, you want to tell them, look, if this doesn't work out, if this is not your cup of tea, I'll give you your money back. Like, there's no risk to you here. And then, yeah, I think Tim nailed it. Like, I think you continue to niche down, really think about who your avatar is, build that presentation for that avatar, and then find out where they are, and go get in front of them in person, provide the value, and then kind of at the end of it, hey, this is a service that I offer. This is what that service looks like. Maybe you get rid of the box thing, but you still have like the annual get together, because now it's like a club. Like, there's a club, and we all get together in person. And I think as you're providing that value, what you'll find is, just like I can't remember who mentioned it, but that word of mouth will continue, even if it's not someone that's in the program, right? It could be, a youth pastor that is sat in on one of the things, and now he's at a different get together, and he's telling, hey, you guys have got to bring this guy Ken in and have him talk to your group. And so you'll get the word of mouth where you'll start getting invited to do that presentation. Because again, that's value that you're giving away for free. And then, of course, you're just refining that message that gets people into the group.
Yeah. And Mona says, are you doing this at SRF? Are you?
I don't know. Am I? That's coming
There's
right
some
up.
room
That's
on
like what, a month
Sunday
away?
on one of the stages. Just saying.
I'm thinking if Nicole put that comment up on the screen that we're kind of trying to twist your arm here, saying, Ken, you need to do it.
Give the
SRF.
purpose presentation.
I'm in.
Personality
I mean,
card
if you have an opening that you need filled, I'm in.
I love it.
How did you
Okay,
get the
so-
10? You said that you had 10 conversations and 2 of those joined, but how did you get that 10?
A few of them came off of just a post I did on Facebook about it, gauging interest.
Okay.
And then a couple of them were people that I reached out to that I thought may fit that bill. Like, hey, here's something I'm starting. Do you know anybody who would be interested? And it might not have been quite 10 conversations, but somewhere in that range.
How many of those came off the post versus the people you reached out to that you thought might fit the bill?
The ones that joined came off of the post. They were, it's kind of interesting. I was really surprised at the 2 guys who joined. When you start a podcast, they say your mom's the only one who listens for the first 100 episodes. But if you start a business, nobody you know supports you. The 2 guys that joined are my brothers-in-law, one from each side of the family. So that really surprised me and encouraged me, because they believed in what I was doing. But then also, I've built a relationship with them for the last how many years that they've been in the family. So there's that aspect of it too.
So they've seen you build your life the way you want it to be. They've seen you build your purpose into your life firsthand. So they've seen your personal story. And they had a belief that you could help them do that for themselves after seeing you do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
I have not seen that story online.
Yeah,
Now,
your online stuff.
Granted,
you're
I
all,
haven't listened to a lot of your podcasts, so maybe you stuck that story into your podcasts. But the first and easiest story you can tell is how it made your life better. And the question that you have about should you only focus on business or relationship is a good question to talk about, because your story, also your relationship with your wife, is good. And I don't know if it's always been wonderful. I'm sure it's taken work if it was always wonderful. But if you're able to share some of like how finding your purpose has made not only the business side better, but the relationship side better. Like, nobody wants to have a terrible relationship for the rest of their life with their spouse. That's not fun. And, you know, we're like, I would say societally, we're kind of sold this fiction that you fall in love with somebody and it's just golden from there, like the fairy tale thing. And that, like, no marriage I've seen that's great just sort of happened and was awesome the whole time without both parties working on it. And that is something, when I see the decay of society, I think that's part of it, because we
A
give
huge
up.
part of it.
Give up. And that's not how that works. That's not how that works well. Everybody I know who has a great marriage has had a moment where they decided to save it and to work on it. And I bring this up because most people I know who run passion-based good businesses generally have a spouse who is on board with it. From, you know, whether it's a man or woman running the business, their spouse is on board with it. They are part of the whole thing. Like even Sean's spouse, who you don't see out putting solar panels up, is on board with it, or else he would not still be married after dropping her off at the house he's in now on one of the hottest days of the year, and then like leaving to go stay in an air-conditioned hotel without her, right? Isn't that what happened, Sean?
That's what everyone says.
Great story.
And you
And
have
by the way,
great
it was the
stories.
hottest. It was the hottest day in recorded history in Middle Tennessee.
Wow.
Yeah.
That had to fill her love tank, I bet.
Yeah.
Didn't she sleep in the car with the AC on?
She slept in the truck, and about a week later, she was like, "All right, me and the girls are going to Georgia. You call us when you get all this figured out."
I'm sure she loved you at the moment, but she might not have liked you a whole lot at that moment.
That's pretty much how that went. What have you gotten us into?
We've had a few of those moments here.
I think you need to
Everybody
be
has
telling
those
those
moments.
stories, Ken. You need to be like those, just the two stories of the two guys that are willing to put their money where their mouth is, what they're doing. That needs to be stuff on your Facebook posts, on your TikTok videos, all the time. And just push that story, because that's, I mean, those guys, they know you and they still give you money.
I know, right? How rare is that?
Yeah, and Nicole really hit the nail on the head earlier. The I see some of your stuff online. I rarely see it where you're literally telling your story. This is what I did. This is how this has helped me. This is how making the decision to focus on my purpose, even though I had a good construction business going. And I literally called my biggest customers and told them I wasn't doing that anymore, because that's how much I believe in this. Like, that needs to be a pretty regular message that you're putting out, because that's going to resonate with people as well.
And how would your life have been different if you hadn't decided to follow your passion and go into construction and then ultimately move to Kentucky and live off the land? Like, where would you have ended up, do you think? Do you know? Have you ever thought about that?
I haven't really put a lot of thought into that. I mean, I'm sure I would still be in Georgia, which, I mean, it wouldn't be an all bad thing, but I've grown a lot out of all the changes I've made. I definitely wouldn't be who I am today.
Yeah.
Which maybe
Do
I
you
could
have
follow
a
along.
do you have a I can't remember. Do you have a debt background where you were going to go into debt and then you didn't, or did you always stay out of debt?
No, so I borrowed some money to buy my first vehicle. And by the time I got that paid off, I was like, okay, no more debt. This is stupid. Borrowed money to buy a house, ended up in Kentucky. And we're like, we're building a house debt free. That wasn't happening. So I ended up borrowing money to build a house. So we're not debt free, but we try to be strategic with it. If that helps, I don't know.
Yeah, well, so you
it's what I
never
say to
ended
make
up
myself feel less bad about it.
No, you never ended up in the toxic like credit card debt situation, though.
I have had a little bit, but no, nothing too bad.
Yeah.
No, definitely not hundreds of thousands or anything like that. No.
Yeah. 10,000 is too much. But, yeah. Okay. Yeah, telling your story would be helpful. And that requires having a conversation with your wife about how much of your story you're allowed to tell that involves her, I'm sure. So, because that's how that works.
It is how that works.
Okay,
Even if it
guys.
doesn't, it might reflect badly on her. So, I mean, she likes to like make sure nothing can make people think bad about us.
No, I don't think anybody does.
Oh, they're out there. Everybody has those. If you deal with people, there's people that think bad of you.
Well, okay, true. It kind of goes back to the superhero story. I was on with John Willis yesterday, and he's like, you don't go to a superhero movie to watch a superhero save people all the time. They always have a backstory of this was the struggle. And when you're establishing both credibility and the problem with people, telling people like, this is where I started, and the distance between like the struggle and where I am today, the bigger that distance is, the more and the more that relates to the people you can help, then the more likely it is they are to join your group. And if you have both sort of free ways to interact and then premium services, I think the top of your funnel is that free thing, right? But you're also helping those people, and you want to help people. It's just some of them are not ready yet to opt into the premium thing. And I think about like, even if I have the money, I've got to be ready to know I'm going to follow up on the commitment when I'm going to commit that kind of money. So by having that higher price point, you're only going to get people who do well, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true. Because I mean, if somebody who's going to commit that, most times they're going to follow through on it and try to do as much as they can to make sure that they see the return on investment there. I know when I've done something like that, you put the work in, you make sure you get back what you hope to get out of it.
Awesome. Okay. Any last thoughts before we wind up from comments or from people, from you, Toolman Tim, or you, Sean?
So what is Ken's specific homework? That's the thing that I want to make sure he's nailed down here, because what I heard from interacting here was you need to nail down specifically who your avatar is. You need to reach out to churches and volunteer your time to put together a presentation, and you need to speak at SRF. And so that's what I heard. I just want to make sure I was on the same page with you, Ken.
That sounds like what I heard. So I definitely have some homework to do.
Hold on. Church presentations. I don't know how to say that. I think you also need to maybe think about your subscription structure, which you probably just decided to do one way, and we keep struggling with your $97 subscription. And you probably already have people signed up for that. Do you?
I have one signed up for that.
Yeah. So, that person gets if you decide to move
deal
back
of a century.
that person gets the deal of the century. Exactly.
It's
And
the
I
whole
would
enchilada.
build them into the bigger thing. And you also need to circle back with your people you've helped already to talk to them with your ears to hear what it is they're getting out of it, on like why is it working for them? What are they getting out of it? What benefit has it brought to them on the tangible side, whether it's that I grew a business from 0 to hero, or and with the help of the whole family, with them buying in, like however that works, because those benefits are what you can talk about when you're telling your story. And you can say, well, did I get the same benefits when I did this for myself? And often when other people say the things to us, that's when we're like, oh yeah, they put it in the words I couldn't find. And that's awesome. So interview your people.
And one other thing I'd throw out there too is when you're formulating your Facebook posts or your TikTok videos and stuff, think about how to do them so that they're not generic. Think about how you inject yourself into them and where your passion is, whether and tell your story while you're doing it. So whether it's your story or the story of your two brother-in-laws that are doing it. And what I will do is you pick the one post every month that you think injects your personality, and I'll share it across all social medias, and I'll give you a plug on the podcast once a month. So, but you got to follow up with me and send it to me. So I'm good with that. If you're good with that.
No, I appreciate that. That's an amazing offer there.
Sweet.
Feel
So
like I'm on Shark
the
Tank.
thing I would add, there you go. The thing I would add is, we talked about avatar. As I'm thinking through, who we're talking about, you talking to, I'm still not clear if we're talking about someone who has a side hustle and is talking about making it into a full-time hustle, someone who is already doing the full-time side, full-time hustle, solopreneur type person, and it wants to get better, wants to maybe stop doing 12 things and whittle that down to one or two that they're really passionate about, or the person that has a full-time job and maybe they're thinking about going off to the other thing, or maybe it's all of those. And so that's something that you need to do, Ken, is think about that, and that might change over time, right? You might find that the message resonates with one group versus another group, but we talked about maybe that you are your avatar to a certain extent, right? And so I think that that's the thing that needs a little bit of work and refining, because you really have to refine that in order to develop the message that's going to resonate with that person. Because as we're talking through this, I'm thinking, well, there might be people that are interested in living their life with more purpose that have zero interest in being their own boss, right? And maybe that's a different group, right? So anyways, I'm having that thought, and I had it a couple of times, actually even wrote it down, is we're really focusing on solopreneurs. That's who you want to work with, but there may be another market that the message resonates with as well. That's at least worth considering.
And that is something that I have struggled with there, is knowing exactly which of those niches to hit, because the biggest thing that I do talk about, like Nicole mentioned, is that purpose is doing something that is meaningful and inspiring to you and makes a difference on other people. So narrowing that down to, is that somebody that wants to start a side hustle to fulfill that? Because we can't all leave our day jobs. And for some people, they're just never going to. But there are things you can do to inject that purpose into life. And so I've really struggled with, is that somebody that wants to start a side hustle? Is that somebody that wants to go from side hustle to full-time business? Is it somebody that wants to walk away from their corporate job and start their own little business full-time? That's something that I have struggled with there. So you did hit the nail on the head with, you're not unclear on that, because I'm unclear on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think maybe let the market tell you which one of those people are your customers, because you can help any of them, right? Wherever the person is in that path, you can help them, but the market will tell you which of them are willing to, hire you as their coach and be a member of that group that's going to help the other people as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you probably already know by looking at the people who have already signed up. Like, what are they?
Yeah, how many more brother-in-laws do you have?
Yeah, well, no, he's got 3. He's got a third one who I assume is not a brother-in-law, although
It actually is.
Oh, how many siblings do you have? Jeez.
Well, they're on opposite sides of the family. One is my sister's husband. The other is my wife's sister's husband. Then the third guy that just joined is one of my other sister's husband. He joined on the monthly.
I mean, how big is your family? That's really niched down. Just target your family.
I've only got 3 more brothers-in-law to go. So I'm working on them, but I'm not planning that route.
And then the other thing, Ken, would be, you mentioned that you would get referrals from like a building supply company. And I think that if they have any sort of events or similar businesses, is it Esch's Building Supply? I remember seeing that shirt somewhere on your property. No, that's who your dad works for.
Oh, that's who my dad works for. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, sorry, squirrel. But going and talking to the guys that are doing that, because those are all mainly solopreneurs, right? And so I think that targeting the having the conversation on the church side is very helpful, but also getting in front of, if those building companies have, get-togethers or picnics with their builders and stuff like that, going and doing a presentation for them as well, because, again, that's the other side of that target market.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh, this has been super helpful, y'all. I mean, it has. Okay, I need to go back and listen to this a couple more times and work on that, refine that message, and I got a bunch of work to do.
You got some work
Awesome.
to do, my friend.
I do.
Work. Yeah. I'll send you your do out items. I wrote them down as we said them. Guys, this is a very different accelerator than the last one, but the purpose of these is to help people brainstorm and find next steps and make themselves better. If you're interested in being on one of these, go to livingfreeintennessee.com. I've got an application form there, or if you look in the description of the show notes, if this is the audio podcast, or if you look in the description on YouTube or wherever, it has a link directly to the accelerator program just to sort of explain what you do and how you get involved. Okay, we're going to end. Thank you so much for being on, guys.